Okay, so welcome everybody to this cybersecurity training. Um, I'm so excited to have every one of us here. Those who are currently on to the stream, thank you for joining. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So, what are we going to be doing today? I've received a lot of questions, a lot of inquiries, people asking and saying, hello, Hayo, I want to join your cybersecurity community. I want to become a cybersecurity professional. What do I need to do? How do I go about this? So, today I'm going to be answering those questions. I'm going to be also showing you um, sort of a roadmap on what you need to do and what it is like, ahead of you in cybersecurity. So, firstly, I am Mide Oyedele. I believe everyone knows my names. Yeah. So I am Mide, and I'm a student of cybersecurity, and I've been in the field of cybersecurity for a couple of years, and it's so much an interesting journey so far, I must confess to you. And of course, it can't be more interesting, you know, or it can't be better, you know, than what it is right now. It can be better, of course, and it won't even be better if you guys are not part of the journey. So I'm so glad that you guys are part of the journey. So you make it more interesting, you make it more, you make it get better as well. So the essence at which I'm doing this, is just I'm very passionate. Look, guys, I'm sorry that I have to talk a lot. I talk a lot. Like, if you know me, you know me. So I'm doing this because, of course, I have the passion to always, see people grow. I I don't believe in mediocrity. I myself am still learning in this field. So I always want to see those who are coming into the field cybersecurity not make some mistakes that myself have made, and then some other professionals. So a lot of questions that people ask usually is, or when they come to my DM, they say my laptop is 4 gig RAM, my system is this sort of specifications, and are you sure I'll be able to get into cybersecurity? Well, we'll find out today. We'll find out today. And what I mean by that is, now we are here. I'm going to be introducing this platform to us. It's the LinkedIn Learning. I believe we are all familiar with LinkedIn Learning, so it's not going to be something new to. If you're not familiar with LinkedIn Learning, at least you're familiar with LinkedIn, so you know LinkedIn. So LinkedIn Learning is a platform where professionals use skilling themselves, and in learning. So you can see this is the platform right there, and of course you can see it like that's what's on my at the background. So, and I've used LinkedIn Learning a lot. I've taken a lot of courses, a lot of certifications through LinkedIn, and right now you can see the Become a Cybersecurity Professional course. Now, this platform, I want you to take note. Usually, it's a paid platform, so you have to pay monthly to have access to it. So, right now, I have access to it through, you know, my institution. You know, so it's more or less like um, already paid for platform that I'm using. So I have all the courses here and I can study them for free. So if I can do that, then why not Why not? I mean, why not this? Why not? Why not? Why not also give out? Why not also share this knowledge, even though it's going to be based on cybersecurity. I mean, there are a lot of courses that we can take. This stream is not about going through audio courses where I'm very specific on cybersecurity. Do you understand? But of course, anyone who probably has, you know, any ideas, or you probably have an interest in something else that you want to learn, of course, um, we could also study that. I mean, based on your schedule, based on my schedule, we can do that. Now, why am I using this platform? I'm using this platform because they have a lot of very rich content. They have a lot of very informative, learning content, and you know, that is actually one of the main reasons. A lot of certifications, CISSP, CompTIA, Cisco, they have their content on here that if you can study, and follow through, you know, the learning content here, trust me, you can build on that and then you can ace any exams. Believe, believe. So, um, another thing is I'm going to be using this platform for most of the upcoming trainings and preparation for certifications for anyone who is going to be interested. So if you're beginning to see me more on LinkedIn Learning, just understand that this is what we are going to be doing, and this is the platform that we're going to be familiarizing ourselves with. So that being said, now this is going to be as informative and interactive as possible. What do I mean? What I mean is I'm going to be trying as much as possible to make sure that everyone, everyone on this platform, right, on this stream, I get your participation. I'm going to be ensuring that I get your participation. And what do I mean by that? What do I mean by that? What I mean, I'm going to be setting up some sort of channel at which we all can reach out to me, and that is going to be by mail. It's going to be by mail, right? So, and that means that we are going to be keeping in touch with each other. I want to be sure that we are all, making the best use of these opportunities. So I'm going to avail an official mail that we're going to be communicating through, which we'll be having correspondences. Look, at the end of each of these courses, you can see, right, that we're going to start in. Um, there are what is called like a practice test. So you are going to be answering those questions and sending those questions to my mail. That shows to me that you followed through the course and then you understood what happened. And it's not just going to be about that, it's going to also be about those who get the right answers correctly. There are going to be rewards, there are going to be prizes for them. They are going to, it's not just going to be about you just answering those questions, right? There are going to be prizes. I'll pick up the winners. Of course, they'll be posted, and it's not just about that. It's about you yourself. It's about the value you're adding to yourself. It's about the impact you're trying to also make, and it's about you um, being, interactive with this platform. So that is something that I want, to point out on. So now back to why we're here. How do I become a cybersecurity professional? Now we can see on my screen, it's right here. You become a cybersecurity professional learning path. Now, one thing to note is this doesn't have to do with you having any specific type of laptop, whether a laptop is 2 gig RAM or 1 kilobyte RAM. I'm sorry, but yeah, it doesn't have, there's nothing that has to do with that right here. This learning path, you can see everything is just based on understanding cybersecurity, the cybersecurity foundations, the cybersecurity threat landscape, learning the OWASP 10. And OWASP 10 is the Open Web Application platform for, we'll look at that. You can see Open Web Application Security Project Platform. Cybersecurity careers and certifications, land yourself cybersecurity, your first cybersecurity job. Look, this hasn't, and of course, thanks to the cybersecurity experts like Malcolm Shaw, Mark Meninga, Caroline Wong, and Mary Galloway, who have come together to put this cybersecurity uh, contents together. So um, you can see nothing here has to do with ethical hacking, GRC. Um, I mean, from the surface, when we get into it, I just need to understand that this has nothing to do with your laptop specification. This has nothing to do with, of course, when we start studying, we're going to be, you know, talking about things like, ethical hacking. We're going to talk about things like GRC, network security, cloud security, things like that, application security. But my point is, right now, being on this stream and following through this course, you can do that on your phone. You can use your simple mobile to do this. You really don't need to have a sophisticated system. All you need to do is just understand the concepts. This is how to become a cybersecurity professional. We're going to be taking you through each and every of these courses, and there are 5 items here. Of course, you can see the first one takes, a much longer time, for 2 hours, 43 minutes. Then we have 59 minutes on the cybersecurity threat landscape. We have the learning OWASP top 10 for 36 minutes. We have the cybersecurity careers and certifications for 2 hours, 8 minutes. And then we have land your first cybersecurity job for 48 minutes. So we're going to be learning through all these. So you can just imagine what you would have learned at the end of this learning path, the knowledge you would have gained. So there would be other, streams for more advanced topics or more direct focus topics like penetration testing, ethical hacking, cloud computing, networking. But what we are about to look at is just on the surface of becoming a cybersecurity professional. So it's going to take us a total of 7 hours, 16 minutes, to study this. But how we're going to be doing this is, of course, I'm going to be learning with you. Like I said, most of these concepts I'm already familiar with. I've been in cybersecurity field now for over a period of time. So I'm going to be, playing these courses. We would watch them together. I'll be explaining some more, in a more in-depth way, some of the concepts that we're going to be learning from there. So I'm going to try to make it as interesting as possible. I'm going to also try, I pray, and I receive grace to not drag it as as much, I mean, uh, to make it as interesting as possible. Let's just keep it that way. You understand? So I'm not going to make it boring. I try. I receive grace to be interactive. I receive grace to be lively. So I'm not going to drag it. We're just going to enjoy the flow. Once there's something that is key, I need us to understand. I'll pause it. I explain it to us. We're going to make it that interactive. We're going to make it fun. But like I said, if I don't get, okay, let me just say this. If I don't get your responses via the email I'm going to be providing, that shows to be that you're not following the course. And of course, if you're not following the course, then why am I here going to, um, 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 study with you for 7 hours, and then I don't get your responses, or There's nothing how to beat you're responding to. So we've used over 15 minutes now just talking about the introduction and everything. So that is the format, that is the process, that is how we're going to be doing this. So why not let's dive into this, straight away, and let's enjoy ourselves. Okay, so here we are. I'm just going to be starting from understanding the cybersecurity frameworks and standards. You can see these are the topics we're going to be covering, right? I just, I mean, just have a look at it, understand the cybersecurity frameworks and standards, what you should know, the cyber kill chain, cyber threats, the emergence of cyber threat. You can see the list goes on and on. So right here, this is just, the cybersecurity, or cybersecurity as a field, the foundations. These are what we need to understand. Keep your laptop specification aside first. We'll get to that, but just understand this concept. These are what are important getting into cybersecurity. These are what are critical getting into cybersecurity. I'm sorry that I have my phone beeping. It's just, of course, work and family. So let's get into it. Let's get started. So yeah, after each, this is what I was talking about. After each of these modules, you can see after the cyber threats. Before we go to the next module, which is frameworks and protection against cyber threats, we have the chapter quiz. Yeah, so this is the quiz that I'm going to be providing my mail, an official mail where you're going to be sending a response to, how you did is on the subject, you write cybersecurity foundations, your full names, and then on the body, you just write your answers. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. So I'll do that, and then I'm hoping to get everyone's response. I'm hoping to get everyone's response. Let's dive in. Let's dive in straight away.
The Internet is an essential service, as necessary as electricity and other utilities. That makes cybersecurity a requirement for everyone. I'm Malcolm Shaw. I've spent a career helping governments and businesses protect their systems against cyber attack. Join me as we explore cybersecurity frameworks and standards, calculating the cyber risk and responding to an incident. We're all fairly familiar with the use of computers and the Internet, of the risks of viruses and other forms of malware, and of the basics of avoiding such attacks. However, over the years, cybersecurity professionals have developed a number of standards and frameworks which together provide a structured approach to managing the cyber risk. Understanding these frameworks provides a good foundation for anyone with an interest in or wishing to build a career in cybersecurity. This LinkedIn Learning course is suitable for anyone who wishes to learn about cybersecurity. You don't need to be a security professional to take it. It would help to be familiar with the following two basic frameworks. ISACA's control objectives for IT provide the best practice model of IT processes and help provide the context for the threats to and protection of IT systems. NIST's cybersecurity framework provides the most recognized approach to cybersecurity in an internet-enabled world, and some pre-reading would be helpful in taking this course. In the
Okay, so we just saw what was noted there by um, the the instructor. So that framework, I'm just going to go back there.
We're all fairly familiar with the use of in an internet.
So right here, the NIST framework is one that I would encourage everyone, take out some time, go on this website. You can see the website right here, nist.gov/framework, and then study about it, read about it. Yeah. try to gain some knowledge, try to understand what he's talking about. But basically, this is a framework that has to do, with the approach methodologies, the implementation guides, and certain mappings, documentation, things you need to understand, when it comes to recovery, identifying, protecting, detecting, and responding to certain cybersecurity attacks. In the course um of this training, I want to believe there are going to be like some part where we talk about this concept more in depthly. Do you understand? But one thing I want to point out is, in cybersecurity, you must be ready to study, you must be ready to read, you must be ready to research. So it's not out of place for you to, visit this website, nist.gov slash cyberframe work slash resources, and then just have a view, have it as one of your tabs on your system, you know that is constantly opened. Okay, and then look at it, research about it. I want to believe some time after this, training goes by, I would also put up some of these resources out there, where we would have a stream where we might not actually, follow this process, like playing the LinkedIn or using the platform of LinkedIn. It's just going to be an interactive time between myself and everyone out there. But like, for the purpose of right now, we understanding how to become a cybersecurity professional, and of course, um, we have this platform LinkedIn. We're going to be using this to understand this path. So let's keep going.
Net enabled world, and some pre reading would be helpful in taking this course.
Some pre-reading would be really helpful.
In the 1990s, cyber attack was generally associated with pranks by bored teenagers, just hacking around for fun. However, the potential for committing crime via the internet didn't go unnoticed, nor did the possibility of exploiting connectivity for intelligence gathering. Nowadays, cyber attacks come mostly from organised criminals and state-sponsored agents using well-defined end-to-end business processes. In 2009, a team from the Lockheed Martin Cyber Emergency Response Team produced a seminal paper on cyber attack called Intelligence-Driven Computer Network Defense, informed by analysis of adversary campaigns and intrusion kill chains. This can be downloaded from their website, shown here.
This is another resources that I would advise us to read on. Have this tab opened as well. The intelligence-driven computer network defense, informed by analysis of adversary campaigns and intrusion kill chains. We're going to be, understanding some of this concept as we progress, of course. But you want to have this tab as well opened. You can see the website is available on the you can see the search bar, right there, lockheedmartin.com slash, you can see the content. So please also have this opened, download it, and then follow through.
The research paper introduced the concept of what is now commonly known as the cyber kill chain. The cyber kill chain views an attack in 7 stages: reconnaissance, weaponization, delivery, exploitation, installation, command and control, and action. An attack doesn't always progress from one step to the next. They'll often overlap, but each stage represents a milestone in prosecuting the attack. Reconnaissance is the term given to finding a target and understanding its characteristics, the cyber equivalent of casing the joint. Individuals typically have one address on the internet which has been allocated by their internet service provider, whereas a business may have a number of addresses in what's known as their internet domain. A cyber attack against a business target will start with a known website address and then scan the internet space around that address for other systems used by the target. The business will see this as a response check on every host in its domain. This is known as an IP address scan. When the attacker has a list of active hosts, he or she will scan each host in turn to find out what entry points are exposed. This is known as a port scan. This is done to identify potential vectors for attack and check the versions of software used in those vectors. Attacks nowadays are not done manually. An attacker will usually purchase time on a network of compromised computers in order to run automated scans. These networks are known as botnets and may consist of hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of compromised computers. This allows cyber attacks to be run at scale. Weaponization means taking a known vulnerability and customizing it to a specific target or group of targets, and integrating it to enable it to be run from an automated cyber attack platform. The weaponized malware may be designed to exploit a vulnerability in a specific version of an operating system, or target a specific online banking website. In the age of hacking as a business, cybercriminals will often purchase the weaponized malware from dedicated developers rather than develop their own. The most common way of delivering malware is to attach an infected document, a PDF, image, or other electronic item, in a way that when the document is opened, the malware will self-install. This file can then be sent to the victim via email, a process known as phishing. Another way might be to find a vulnerable website, infect it with malware, and send an email invitation to the target to visit the website. If the victim visits the website, then the malware is downloaded and infects their workstation. A third way might be to use default user IDs and passwords built into software on the target system, or to use a stolen user ID and password to enter the target system and directly implant the malware. It's also possible to find flaws in the software that's exposed to the internet and to manually deliver the malware. In practice, an attack will often require establishing a beachhead on an internet-exposed host, and then using that to penetrate deeper into the system to get to the real target, which may not be directly connected to the internet. Finally, an infected flash drive can be used to deliver the malware, and this can be very effective if the target system is not connected to the internet. This requires that a user of the target system can be persuaded or tricked into using the flash drive. For email attachment and flash drive attacks, the infected item will exploit a vulnerability in the target software post-delivery when the document is opened. A compromised website may similarly download HTML code which takes advantage of a browser vulnerability. In the case of remote access, the exploitation phase may use a packet stream to exploit a vulnerability in the protocol of an internet-exposed service, or may simply use cracked or stolen credentials. After the exploitation phase, the malware or intruder may simply take action, skipping directly to the last phase of the cyber kill chain. However, the more usual case is that a payload is installed either into the memory or onto the hard disk of the target system. Additionally, some form of mechanism may be introduced to make sure the payload is restarted every time the system is rebooted. One way of doing this in Windows is to add a registry entry to automatically run the payload when the system starts up. The payload will often be, or include, a means of maintaining ongoing access into a command shell. A system compromise is often automated. Once a payload has been installed, the first action it takes will be to connect back to a command and control server to register as a compromised host. The attacker will then want to direct the implant to take action, such as listing the subdirectories and files, extracting specific named files, modifying or replacing software, and so on. An important feature of the payload is that it can determine the address of the command and control server, which may change over time. Exactly what form of action is carried out by the payload when it arrives at its target depends upon the motives of the attacker. A hacktivist may want to deface a website. A state-sponsored agent may want to steal sensitive information. And a cybercriminal may want to access a bank account in order to steal money. The common theme, however, is that, whatever the action is, it's unlikely to be in the best interests of the target. Stop for a moment and think about this week's current events. Have you heard about a recent attack? How might you relate what you've heard to the cyber kill chain? You probably heard about the action that happened, but not about the delivery phase. How might that have occurred?
All right, so great. Let's have a quick discussion. We just understood the cyber kill chain, and one thing I want to point out very quickly before we move on to the next content. Like I said, I don't want us to. We're going to make it as interactive, as interesting as much as possible. Yeah, we understood the cyber kill chain, and then there were how many phases? There were one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, seven phases. Now, remember, the instructor pointed out something very important. He said this doesn't it is a chain, but this chain doesn't mean that reconnaissance will happen, weaponization next, exploitation, installation, command and control action. Now this could overlap themselves. It could be that there's no even need for reconnaissance because of course we maybe a particular employee or there's a discount to the employee already has a flash drive and then just goes directly into what into delivery. Of course, you understand what that means. It could be that from that flash drive there's already malware installed, and then the employee doesn't need to start performing in reconnaissance or weaponization. All you just need to do is just plug in the USB into one of the servers, and then exploitation will take place of that particular vulnerability. So that's number one point. And also, it's I want to believe the way the instructor has explained this concept or this cyber cage, will be able to understand. Reconnaissance basically, is you taking out your time, to undergo a research phase, where you're trying to study a particular target. You want to be able to understand, okay, what type of systems they have, scanning, weaponization, where you develop your weapon, you carry your weapon, you go, it's just like going to a gun shop trying to check which of the pistols or which of the AK-47s you want to use, of course. And then the delivery is you looking at, okay, what type of bullet do you want to use? Do you want to use live rounds, or you want to use rubber bullet, things like that. Exploitation is when, of course, you're actually exploiting a particular vulnerability in that system. Installation, after you've exploited that vulnerability, you're installing a path for what is known as the next phase, which is command and control. Of course, some of these attacks, like the one I cited, is it's physical. Maybe a disgruntled employee takes a USB drive, plugs it in. What about situations where this is happening online? This is happening remotely, and you can see where in the course of the course, you talked about botnets, which sophisticated attackers, or of course coordinated attacks, uses those types of that type of that type of process by purchasing botnets on the net that launches some types of attacks like the distributed denial of service attacks, stuff, things like that, which we're going to understand very soon. So those botnets of course will be controlled, will be given will be giving the attacker feedback, will be giving the attacker a command and control phase, of course, from that same point where the attacker is controlling those botnets. So there's going to be like a type of command and control center, so where of course commands are given and controlled for those botnets are also implemented, things like that. And then the action, what is the actual motive? What does the attacker want to do after launching those botnets? Does he want to perform a distributed denial of service? Does he want to steal credentials? Does he want to infiltrate their system through malware? Does he want to use, or does he want to deploy a keylogger or a spyware or an adware? What exactly is the motive? Things like that. We're going to get more knowledge. We're going to understand this as we go. I hope you're finding this interesting. I really hope you are. Let's move.
In the early days of computing, the security threats faced by businesses reflected traditional pre-IT fraud. One traditional method of fraud is to have non-existent employees on the payroll, with pay being drawn and put into someone else's account. In January 2012, a woman in Hawaii was indicted for allegedly attempting to embezzle money from the security guarding firm for which she worked by registering and taking the pay for two fictional employees. The scam would net her more than $200,000. A second method is known as salami fraud, so named because it resembles shaving a thin slice of meat. In this case, what's shaved is the fractions taken off in a rounding calculation, or changing transactions by taking a few cents from them. If the business deals in millions of transactions, then this can become a significant fraud. A third form of fraud is payment for non-existent goods. This can happen when one person has the ability to raise a purchase order, receipt goods, and issue checks. A similar problem occurs for individuals when an online seller receives money in advance for non-existent goods, or has the auctions rigged by entering false bids to inflate prices. As the use of computer systems grew, so did the threats. More sophisticated forms of fraud emerged, taking advantage in many cases of the weakening controls in the IT environment. The early days of computing brought with them youngsters enthralled by the challenge of using a computer and a modem to break into other computers. And so began the age of the teen hacker. This was mostly individual challenge and peer recognition, although there were some early instances of what we now know as cyber espionage and cybercrime. The classic hacker of the 1990s was Kevin Mitnick, otherwise known as Condor. After a decade of hacking for no other reason than to demonstrate how good he was, Mitnick was finally caught and sentenced to 3 years jail time. The full story, book and film is described on the Takedown website. As the use of the web grew and information websites and business web portals became more common, we saw bored teenagers defacing websites and leaving "I got you" messages. Website defacements were also targeted as part of politically motivated attacks and used to communicate a political message in what's known as hacktivism. As dependence upon IT systems grew, another security threat to emerge was the denial of service attack, in which a remote attacker can compromise IT systems through exploiting vulnerabilities or through overwhelming their ability to handle the size of information flows. As the internet grew, adversaries were able to take control of large numbers of computers, known as a botnet, and focus them on a single target, substantially amplifying the impact of the denial of service. This is known as a distributed denial of service, or DDoS. A global example of a denial of service occurred in February 2014, when an unknown attacker launched a rolling wave of distributed denial of service attacks on a variety of targets, country by country around the world. The scale of the attack was enormous. The attack used a special feature of the network time protocol to amplify the data. By the time the packet had reached the target, it had been amplified 50 times, making this the equivalent of about 250,000 individual denial of service attacks. One of the businesses targeted in this campaign was attacked by 4,278 individual IP addresses from over 80 countries, delivering a continuous stream of over 1 million packets per minute for about an hour. The graphic shows the timeline of data arriving from the internet to this company.
So um, we just understood a cyber threat that happened, and of course, you can see how the instructor explained for us how that happened with the use of botnets, and you can see, of course, how dangerous botnets can be, and of course, usually when botnets are in play, the distributed denial of service is what can is the type of threats that can happen. So take for instance, I have a single system and my system is identified by just one IP address. Yeah. Now, if I plan to launch a distributed denial of service, of course, what I'll be doing is probably, you know, uh, maybe after I get my target system, I'm trying to, and I discover that the target system probably has a port open. Let's say their FTP port, opened, and or their secure shell port open, and I'm trying to launch a denial of service for that service, maybe by sending certain packets, flooding, that packet to that, port. Now that's happening from just one IP address. Now imagine you have 50 botnets like we saw, which is, of course, imagine how many packets will be sent. When we saw the multiplication, we saw about 50 times 50, which is about 250 being sent to one particular. Now you can see how heavy that port is going to be receiving those packets, and of course at that point, could, because those packets aren't even legitimate packet, you know in a sense where they are legitimate packet that requires proper communication, then it can happen, of course, because so many of us, not just one person right now, is going to be watching this stream, right? And of course, I expect that from the service that is provided by X, people can tap into the streaming port, or I'm just, speaking right now as, or from the technical perspective, streaming from the FTP port, of course, and then you're having proper communication, inflow, outflow. It's just like a pipe. So there's an inflow, there's an outflow, so everyone can pass. But imagine a case where those packets are corrupted. Those packets are already are not genuine packet. They might probably be, a packet that maybe a TCP SYN, packet that does not, allow for the three-way communication to be established. Imagine these concepts that I'm using. We are going to understand them soon. Some of them are networking concepts, but I just want you to understand what that threat is. Now, imagine that happening, and it's closed at one end because, of course, it's not a three-way communication, it's just a one-way communication. Then one of 50 botnets sending 50 packet, 50 times 50, 250, and stuck without response. I mean, and that's just the minimum. It could go, I mean, of course, bare minimum, it could go as large as 250 botnets. Imagine 250 botnets sending a flood packet, or flooding a packet with SYN ACK or a TCP SYN flag, without establishing a proper connection. It's going to be a disaster. So that is the concept, and you can see how, those types of threat like the denial of service can. That's not the only type of, threat that we have to systems. There are a lot of threats. Let's keep, going. We would definitely, find this more educative.
By the late 1990s, electronic commerce had become a significant part of the economy, and organised crime was starting to look at the potential for low risk, high gain crimes through the internet. Cybercrime started to grow rapidly, with one of the major targets being access to databases of credit card information. The loss of credit cards, known as a data breach, became a significant risk for businesses as the payment card industry introduced penalties for non-compliance with their cybersecurity standards. By 2010, cybercrime had become as big an industry as illicit drugs. There have been many data breaches over the last few years. This visualization of data breaches shows the massive breaches in the Shanghai Police, Cineverse, and Facebook. With a breach of 500 million records, Facebook takes top place in the last year or so. Credit cards are not the only sensitive information that can be breached. In June 2015, the US government admitted that intruders had stolen personnel files, including security clearance data of over 4 million current and former government employees. Governments have for some time been the victims of hacking attacks, but with little evidence to be able to positively attribute the source. In June 2007, US officials disclosed that hackers broke into the Pentagon through a directed attack on elements of the email system and called it the most successful cyber attack at that time on the US Defense Department. The US attributed the attack to China, one of a number of Chinese attacks on Western governments known by the codename Titan Rain. China denied any involvement in the attacks. In 2010, the first attributed cyber sabotage case was made public. The US confirmed that it had worked with Israel to develop and deploy the Stuxnet malware to attack the Iranian nuclear enrichment program. It was successful, disrupting the nuclear production capability of Iran. We've seen a new form of attack of recent times, cyber influence operations, with the Clinton email attack which focused on election meddling. Take a moment to check out the world's largest data breaches. Take a look at some of the smaller attacks and see if you can find how many records were lost by the craft beer company world's largest data.
Okay, so let's take a look at these breaches and hacks that happened. Shortly before we do that, we understood two concepts from this section. It talked about how cybercrime grew rapidly, and if you all remember, while before a little while before we go to this session, um, the instructor spoke about something. He said, how did cybercrime rather evolve? Now, remember back in the days when we didn't have to make certain transactions online. For instance, if you want to deposit a check, all you needed to do was to just, maybe have your cash, go to the bank, write some notes, and of course, even that time, some crimes could still occur, like people forging your signature, people doing certain things. Now, that was physical crime, yeah. Now that evolved. Right now, today, you don't have to really go to the bank to deposit checks. All you can do is have your phone, and then you can send money, you can transfer money now, and that can only happen with the use or with the aid of technology, which is, and of course, how are this technology hosted? There are servers and network systems behind the scenes that help such types of transactions to flow. So you can see how, of course, cybersecurity was able to have evolved, and of course, cybercrime, of course, also grew rapidly. Now, we also saw some examples of some types of state attacks that has happened. You can see the involvement of China. You can see US also falling, prey to, an attack of, some certain personnel's credential being stolen and things like that. So now on what we have, right here, behind us on the, record of, breaches and attacks or acts. Now, what can we see? Of course, very prominent Facebook. We can see the Experian in Brazil. We can see the Pakistani mobile operators. We can see the Cineverse. You can see the Thailand visitors. These are, you know, breaches, data breaches that have occurred. And of course, this was last updated 2 years ago, September 2022. So this is another website that I wanted to visit. The information is beautiful.net. It has it on, a very beautiful visualization, and of course, one that can, impact us with knowledge. So let's get to it.
Data breaches. Take a look at some of the smaller attacks and see if you can find how many records were lost by the craft beer company Brewdog. By its very nature, cybercrime lends itself to automation. The malware writers in the cybercrime business ecosystem are now some of the most proficient software writers in the world. But to make money from cybercrime requires automation to carry out attacks at scale. In the early days of computers, viruses propagated through floppy disks. As the internet grew, infections started to appear in file downloads. And as floppy drives phased out, USB drives took their place as a vector for infection. Compromised websites began to host malware and take advantage of browser weaknesses to infect visitors. As the impact of viruses moved from nuisance value to financial gain, so did automation of the crime. By automating and taking advantage of the growing popularity of email and the sheer size of the internet, organised crime was able to achieve cybercrime at a scale which has now eclipsed illicit drug dealing. Cybercrime scales by what's known as a botnet. A botnet consists of a criminal known as the botmaster, who runs a number of command and control systems. The botmaster will usually encrypt his or her command and control access, and often disguise it to look like normal web traffic when accessing these systems. Legitimate websites are compromised and used for command and control, operating only for a certain period of time before being discarded and a new one taking over. The botmaster runs the command and control servers, and each command and control system in turn controls a large number of computers known as zombies that have been infected with a backdoor. A large botnet may have over 1 million zombies under its control. A typical task for the zombie would be to extract files from a target, to use the targets as a source of email spam, or to send specially crafted packets out as part of a distributed denial of service attack. Given that the command and control servers change, both the botmaster and the zombies have to be able to find the current server, and they do this by using a domain generation algorithm. This allows the malware to predict what URLs and or IP addresses may be active at any particular time in the future. The domain name may stay the same and the IP address change, or the domain and IP address may change together. The most notorious botnet, and the grandfather of many subsequent variants, is Zeus. Zeus itself is a botnet construction kit, which enables an attacker to create a customized Zeus-style botnet through a simple-to-use desktop application. The construction kit delivers a selectable remote access Trojan, or RAT, and a command and control module. The Zeus source code was leaked in 2010, and as a result it's been used by many cyber criminals to carry out attacks. It's also been used as the foundation to add functionality and create new botnets, such as Citadel, Ice9, and Game Over Zeus. Zeus's main purpose is to steal online credentials. It includes automated features such as copying the protected storage area which contains internet passwords, intercepting account credentials typed into a browser, or even modifying banking web pages sent from a server to add requests for passwords. Zeus can be used to target both computers and smartphones. Smartphone infections allow Zeus to steal banking access codes that are sent via text message. Cybercrime is a complex, highly organized business involving organized criminals, a variety of service enablers, malware producers, and of course, victims. The criminal organizations decide on the crime campaigns and are supported by the service enablers who run the systems needed to execute the campaign. Banking fraud campaign, for example, will follow the cyber kill chain. It will select targets through surveillance which are vulnerable to a specific technical attack. The malware developers will create malware specifically targeted to this attack, customizing it perhaps to a specific bank website. A team of testers will quality assure the software through testing. The malicious payload is delivered and installed through the botnet. The criminals will often not have their own botnet, but will rent one from another criminal group. For those attacks that are successful, the stolen funds are then transferred to the disposable bank account set up for the campaign. The aim then is to withdraw the funds as cash, to break the electronic money trail. To do this, the campaign uses what are known as money mules, the often poor unfortunates who are recruited to go and collect the money by withdrawing it out of the fraudster accounts, with the very real risk of being caught. While money mules have traditionally been small-time criminals or people with financial difficulties, an interesting development is the emergence of the professional mules for hire, who for about 40% of the money collected offer a fast and responsive service. These services exist in most US cities. One such service has been reported as moving between $30,000 and $100,000 per day.
Okay, so I want to believe I'm reviewing this course on behalf of everyone right now. So, and I sincerely want to believe that we are all having like okay, let's say something. Let's say excellent sessions. Okay, so guys, yeah, let's just say excellent sessions. I want you guys to also drop a review for how these sessions are going, how this stream is going. I want to see a review from you guys. I'm reviewing what we are doing on behalf of everyone on this platform. Now, on my X streaming platform, I want a review as well from you guys. Okay, so just before we go into the next session there, which is on cloaking and alternate data streams, one thing we were able to understand from this previous session was we, the instructor spoke about botnets, he spoke about the how malware, um, the evolution of malware, and also cybercrime, how it's been organized. And I want to believe you guys understood that concept that he made mention of. You know what is really interesting really about this is, going through these study sessions, actually, like watching these videos again, to be honest with you guys, I mean, I'm not just this is not my first time of hearing these terms or knowing what this concept is, but or what these concepts are. But it's just really fascinating because, and this just the this just this oh Lord, English, this doesn't just apply to this session that we are currently on alone, but even every facet of life. Like when you do things over and over again, you get knowledge, you keep adding to your knowledge bank. Watching this again right now is just opening my understanding more to so many things. But one thing what I would just want to bring up from this is, you know there was an illustration on a banking fraud campaign, and you saw how the instructor was able to align the cyber kill train with what that banking fraud campaign looked like. Following the reconnaissance, the weaponization, the delivery, the expectation, installation, command and control. Another thing for us to take out is how we can also build botnets. Look, like I told you guys, as much as possible right now, we're not really dealing with anything that has to do with technicalities. And something I want to tell us that also is, look, right now we are not focusing on ethical hacking, so we're not probably going to be configuring any botnets. You understand what I'm trying to say? We're not going to be configuring any botnets, but this is helping us to understand what a cybersecurity professional should understand. Before you get into the field, or before you get into a war zone, you need to equip yourself. You need to get the right information. You need to get the right armors. This is what we are doing right now. Becoming a cybersecurity professional. Look, after this course, I want to see, or I want to hear those who will be interested. Okay, right now, I want to now start understanding, how to create botnets. Now, when you start thinking like that, of course, you're more of getting into the technical aspect of cybersecurity, configuring botnets, fighting against such, understanding how they are created, how this malware are created, malware analysis, things like this. Now that's the technical part. Of course, we are going to gradually progress into that stage. And of course, those who are as well interested in probably the regulatory, the compliance aspect as well, which I want to believe is also part of this learning path. That is also there for us. But you can see how right now, and I want to just indulge you. Of course, this is going to be a stream, and it's going to be on my X, on my timeline. So any concept you don't understand, like you can easily go back, watch it again, and grabs the message that is in there. But like I said, a review from you guys is really, really important. I need to be sure that what I am doing right now, how this content is being put out. I'm not going to keep on asking for this, but this one time I'm asking, I want you guys to actually respond. Let me know what you think about it, and then if it's really something that you're finding interesting, trust me, we can do this as well for more advanced courses. We can get this up and running for things like penetration testing, ethical hacking, programming, understanding scripting. Where we follow the same format. To study together, to learn together. Um, that we do. Like I said, I don't want to be talking too much, but guys, I like to talk. It's something I'm busy. I want to start again. Let's just dive in straight up.
Attackers who penetrate systems with malware go out of their way to hide it once it's on the target system. If the infection can evade detection, it's more likely to accomplish its intended goals. Let's have a look at some of the ways in which malware can hide. The first method is to use the techniques used by the Windows operating system to hide its own activities. An example of this is the Hidden History folder. I'm in a command shell, and I'll go into a folder in my User Applications directory by typing cd appdata local Microsoft Windows. When I list the contents of the directory, there's a number of files and folders. But there's no history subdirectory. I can list hidden files with dir/ah, but there's still no history subdirectory. However, things are not always as they seem. The history subdirectory does exist, but we just can't see it. Let's try to change directories and go into it. cd history. Well, that worked. So now let's see what's here. And we see the file desktop.ini. This is the method Microsoft uses to hide the subdirectory. When I take a look at what's in it, by typing desktop.ini, I see it has two cloaking entries. The first is a CLSID line, which stops the subdirectory from being included in file-based finds, and the second, the UI CLSID line, which stops the subdirectory from being seen using Windows Explorer. Another little-known way of hiding on disk is to use what's known as alternate data streams. In the early MS-DOS and FAT file systems, files were simply strings of data which could be read byte by byte by applications. In NTFS, a file is a complex structure. NTF files contain at a minimum a section called $data, which is where the data read by an application resides. This is the data stream. However, a file may have many other sections, each with its own name, and each of which can hold information. These are called alternate data streams. Importantly, Windows only recognizes the $data section, so data in any alternate data streams isn't generally recognized. Okay, back at the terminal, let's go into the temporary folder and create a new file called datafile.txt by typing type con, the console, to datafile.txt. Here's a text file which has nothing much to hide. It's simply a string of words that is saved to disk. Okay, that's created the file. Let's check it. Type datafile.txt. and we can see the contents as we entered them. We can also check its size. The datafile.txt is 105 bytes long. I'll create another file called adsfile.txt. Type con to adsfile.txt. This is my secret message which I want to store where no one can find it. Now I'll insert that into a hidden data stream in datafile.txt by type adsfile.txt to datafile.txt colon hidden.txt. Let's see what datafile.txt looks like now. Type datafile.txt and dir. So there's no apparent change. However, if I now type more from datafile.txt colon hidden.txt, we see the hidden text. Alternate data streams can also be used to hide executable files. As an example, I'll insert the Windows calculator into this text file. Type /windows /system32 /calc.exe to datafile.txt, and we'll call it mycalc.exe. Type datafile.txt and dir, and again we see no change. We can use a special form of the Windows instrumentation tool wmic to run this hidden executable. Wmic process call create c /temp /datafile.txt mycalc.exe . And we have the calculator executed. While alternate data streams can't be seen in Explorer or by using the dir command normally, it is possible to use the /r command line option on the dir command to see them. Dir datafile.txt /r. Now we can see that this file does have two additional streams, hidden.txt and mycalc.exe.
All right, so I know so many of us might be looking at what just happened. Yeah, and that's for us that are not familiar yet with the command line. If you're just new to cybersecurity, you're just new to the IT field, I know that interface must have been something that might be confusing. But of course, what was happening there was just something in a more technical term called as obfuscation, hiding a text, or hiding a file in a text document, or hiding a text document in a file document, so which is something that is usually done. you know for instance, you might download a picture from the internet without knowing that a certain malicious file was actually or was actually embedded or obfuscated in that picture. Now you can see what he did there by trying to put a text file in an executable program like the calculator. Now things like these are, or these are at the basic level, are the kind of processes that attacker uses. But like I said, if you want to really understand what he just did, you can roll back. You can have once this stream, once you're watching the stream again, you can have a view of that process again. While I was doing that, I was also trying to do the same process right here, but for the sake of time and so that we don't drag, the sessions, so much. We won't be having to do it simultaneously, or having to do it repeat, having a repetition of those command line. But what we can do is have another dedicated session, as I said earlier, where, without this platform, we just come and, I think we will do this after every course. So this course is Cybersecurity Foundation, so we'll have an overview. So if there's anything we don't understand as well, questions, things like that, we'll have a run through them without the use of the LinkedIn learning platform. So then we would be interacting, directly from my side to us. But for now, let's dive into what we have next.
Let's now look at how we build a program which uses a more sophisticated means of hiding by looking at a simple malware function written as a Windows process to intercept all keystrokes. In Microsoft, when a key on the keyboard is pressed, an event is signaled to the operating system. Windows uses its keyboard driver to read the character that's been pressed and sends it as a message to the application that's waiting for it. However, Windows also allows other processes to look at the message as it passes through the system. That's how hotkeys work. Windows does this by something known as a keyboard hook callback routine. It hooks the key that's been pressed and then calls back after processing it to pass it on to its original destination. This technique can be used to write what's known as a simple keystroke logger. This only takes a few lines of code, but it's quite powerful. I've prepared a keyboard hook program called wmisvc64.cpp, which we can see here. This is a very simple program. The first 5 lines provide the standard setup code for a C++ program. These are followed at line 7 by code which is executed when the program first starts to open an output file called intercept.txt that we'll use later to store intercepted characters. The next 6 lines specify a callback procedure. This is the code that's executed when a key is pressed. Events in Windows are quite granular. For instance, a key press involves 2 events, a key down and a key up. We only need to check one of these, so the callback routine at line 11 just checks for the WM key up event. When it sees this, it writes out to the output file the data associated with this event, which is the internal Windows code for the character pressed on the keyboard. The final action in this routine is to pass on the event by calling the next hook in the chain, using the aptly named callNextHookEX function, which will allow the message to resume its path to the target application.
Let me just pause here a little bit and then speak about something. I know some of us right now might be looking, whoa, what is this on the screen? Yeah, this is a code. And of course, this is a compiler, uh, and where, a program has been written. And of course, this is a very simple and I mean a basic program that was written for a keylogger application. And you can see it's explaining. I'm not going to be explaining. What I just want to, say to us is there's nothing to be scared about, having a view about this code. um of course, I know some of us are not very familiar, or some of us are not very, good yet with coding. Maybe you're still trying to understand what coding is, or what language you want to, make your preference, either Python, Java, C++, or C, things like that. But what I want you to do is, there's nothing to be worried about. Like I said, in the course of these sessions, after our cybersecurity foundations learning path, we would actually, it would actually be nice for us to come and build another, or even, use this same code, write it ourselves. So I would employ you. You can actually take a screenshot of this post session right now, or anytime you're restreaming, you can pause it and then have a screenshot, and then maybe start writing it or start analyzing it yourself. Like I said, would come back, would, write and then understand what exactly. But for the purpose of this session, let's just listen to our instructor as he explains what the I mean he's explaining, of course. And if you are if you're very inquisitive, you would already start understanding what this code does. Of course, he explained the first 6 lines because there's always a process. Once an executable is run, even when you download a simple application file, this is what is at the back end that lets that file run on your system. Of course, this is how it interacts with your system. Because of the line of code, the computer doesn't understand basic English language. These are what the computer understands. So, and there's a process from the execution to the line of what the application is supposed to do, and each phase is, which is what he's explaining. Of course, he already told us what the first 6 line does. Understanding the system, you can see the library it uses, the user status library, and of course on what type of system. On the Windows, you can see the next line is what it's supposed to do, which is of course to have a text file being created, which is intercept.txt, of what is going to be logging, or what the strokes that are going to be logged. So, and this, like I said, is a keylogger file that was written. So let's keep understanding. Let's listen to what he's saying about this application, and then I hope we are getting to understand, better what is happening.
Application. The remainder of the program is the main controlling logic for the Windows process that supports the callback routine. We don't need to go into this in detail, but do note at line 20 that we're registering a hotkey with mod alt and 0 times 39, which is program speak for alt 9. When this is pressed, the program will terminate. Okay, let's see this program in action. We can compile this at the command line by entering cl wmissvc64.cpp. Okay, that's compiled, and we can now run it by typing wmissvc64. And we'll now close the command window. Let's do a bit of simple forensics and look at what's running on our computer. We'll type Ctrl-Alt-Del, open the Task Manager, and look at the processes. There's nothing in the application list to show the interceptor is running. If we scroll down to the background processes, at the very bottom we can see wmissvc64.exe. There's little about it to distinguish it from the normal Windows system processes which are running. It's in plain sight, but it's fairly well hidden nevertheless. Let's type some data into a notepad document. This is my secret note on writing callback routines to capture keystrokes. Okay, I'll close this. I won't save it, and I'll press Alt-9 to terminate the intercept. Let's use Explorer to check the log file the intercept program has been using. And here we see what the program has intercepted. The intercept contains our exit and also the note that we wrote. And it also contains other keyboard activity such as Alt and Shift keys, which display as various special characters. Of course, what an attacker would like to see in the intercept they capture is our system access and banking account login. The lesson here is that if an adversary can get access to implant malware on a computer, even a simple program of a few lines and running as a normal user, it can be difficult to detect and has the ability to read everything that's typed, including access codes and passwords.
Okay, so what I want us to understand from what we just watched, or what we just the lesson we just followed through right now, is we just saw a simple basic program that was written, which is more or less a keylogger that logs keystrokes. And you can see what happened right there. If only we can get that program running on a system, on a target system. Maybe for instance, you have a target at a certain location, and you're able to hide this program behind, let's say, a picture, which of course, like I said, follows the process of an obfuscation. And then the targeter was able to download that picture, and just on clicking on the picture without knowing, already started the execution of that program running, because we saw it from also when the text file was hidden at the .exe, the calculator program, or the calculator program, obfuscated, with the .txt file. Now, if that happens, automatically every log, and of course, like I said, we've also learned that from the command and control center, the attacker gets access of everything that's happening. So remotely, the attacker, once that program starts, is able to have a view of everything that is happening. So he could terminate the program at a time he believes you've maybe let you run the program during the day, and then or lets you, of course, once you click the picture that was obfuscated, it gets a notification that this has happened, this has been clicked. Now the keylog starts operating, and of course could let it run for a week on your system without knowing, because of course you saw the process, and not many of us goes through using the control or delete to look at our task manager what processes are running, because of course even if you do that, you see how hidden that process was. It was just a very basic, simple application. Now that could run on your system for days, for weeks, for months. And when the attacker decides to stop the application or that process from running, he gets an exit, or he commands an exit, controls it, and then gets every of your logged keystrokes back at his end. And of course, from there, you can begin to filter informations like your bank account login, things you've typed, mails you've sent, things like this. So you can imagine how dangerous such types of, or you can imagine how dangerous that would be, and you can see how that type of just a simple program, how much it can actually give, or how helpful it can actually be to an attacker. So that being said, like I said, we are going to write the program. We already have the view of the program. It was written on Visual Code, so we can actually write it. Like I said, that's not going to be something we're going to do today. We're going to have it, at the end of our security foundations path, the course. We're going to have a review. Now we can do this on our own. We can write this code and then try to experiment it and see. Even try to deploy it, obfuscate this remotely. Maybe even send it out to one of these streamers. I'm just joking. Not any, no malicious intention here, just for practice purpose, for education purpose. Like I said, everything we do is this. I mean, disclaimer is coming almost after an hour, but please, everything we learn is for educational purpose only. Let's get back to it. This is actually getting interesting, and I hope you also find it interesting.
Malware using the basic hiding and cloaking techniques can be detected by a knowledgeable investigator. Consequently, the more sophisticated attackers have developed techniques which install malware not just as an application or process, but deep into the heart of the operating system. This kind of malware is known as a rootkit. In order to deploy a rootkit, an attacker must first penetrate the target system and then use what's known as a dropper to install the rootkit, which it either carries as a payload or subsequently downloads. The job of the dropper is to check whether the rootkit already exists on the system, whether the system is operating inside a virtual machine, and special checks such as the country in which it's operating. Once satisfied that this is a legitimate and available target, it inserts the rootkit into the system and makes sure it can restart after a system boot, and starts it running. A rootkit doesn't exploit vulnerabilities. It's designed to hide, operate, and carry out its mission using normal system functions. Similarly, a rootkit isn't a virus. It's an implant which exists in a target, but it doesn't by itself propagate. It can, however, be combined with virus-like code to enable propagation laterally once installed in a system. A rootkit is designed to bypass intrusion detection systems. For example, it may contain code to look for and disable certain forms of antivirus or host intrusion detection software. It will also want to avoid detection by a forensics analyst, and the best place to hide is in the operating system kernel. This is the inner core of the operating system, and intrusion detection systems can't easily see inside the kernel. Getting into the kernel requires rootkits to be coded as a special form of program called a loadable kernel module or driver. Microsoft provides the Windows Driver Development Kit or DDK for developing loadable kernel modules. A driver uses quite complex coding techniques, so I'll not delve into the process of developing and deploying a driver. Suffice to say, drivers operate in the deepest part of the kernel, what's known as ring 0, and this gives them access to all the kernel data structures. In addition to being in the kernel, rootkits run with elevated privileges. There's very little that a rootkit can't do, and it can be very hard to find. Being a privileged process in the kernel allows a rootkit to employ direct kernel object modification, or DCOM. The kernel uses data structures to keep track of its environment. An example is the process data structure, held in the eProcess module. This is a doubly linked list, meaning each entry has two pointers. The forward pointer chain starts at the head of the list, and each entry points to the next entry in the list. The backward pointer chain starts at the end of the list, and each entry points to the previous one. Using these pointers, the kernel can keep track of and manage all active processes. When a user opens Task Manager, what actually happens is that the Task Manager application loads and then calls the kernel asking for a list of applications and processes. The kernel checks its data structures, creates the lists, and then sends them back to the Task Manager for display. When the rootkit is loaded, one of the first things it does is to examine the eProcess list. It follows the forward chain to find its own process and the previous and next ones. Once it has them, it can then change the pointers so that the previous process points to the one following the rootkit, and the one following has its backward pointer changed to point to the one before the rootkit. The first known rootkit to perform DCOM appeared around 2006 and did just this, changing the list pointers in the eProcess data structure to point around its own entry.
Okay, so just before I let our instructor continue, I just want us to pay attention to something that is being discussed right here, and of course, something that I also noted down. Look, what is being discussed is how a rootkit actually engages a certain system, and of course, at the kernel level, you can see the DCOM here, and which is the kernel level. So, and what is a rootkit? We already understood what a rootkit does. A rootkit is like what helps us to have access, or what gives us that direct access, to a system that is not, of course, physically in our disposition. So, for instance, deploying things like um, um, a botnet, of course, would work at the operation and control and command that the rootkit gives. Now, of course, because like just what we understood, that these types of rootkits helps, or they are developed in a way that they bypass IDSs and IPSs. And what are these? These are intrusion detection systems and intrusion prevention system. And of course, they are not viruses. They are seen as processes that also helps the system run. So they are not designed in a way that they have signatures like viruses. Now, another thing to note is a point that was said that rootkit actually don't, even though they are not viruses, but a malicious code could be attached with them in their development in a way that they help in performing lateral movements. Now, because of course you might want to have a rootkit not just installed on a particular system, but probably on other systems that are identified, or to a particular server. Now you can develop a rootkit with a code that gives it that capability to actually perform such type of lateral movements and get installed on other systems. But yeah, right here we can see how the operations, how the operation happens, you know, directly with the kernel of any system at which that rootkit is being embedded on. Let's keep on following through, with what the structure has.
It then hides rootkit activity from the task manager and event scheduler. DCOM can be used on other data structures such as the driver list and the list of open ports. Rootkits will also intercept and remove their entries from directory and file lists. A common way to provide remote command and control is to create an encrypted channel through the use of secure shell connections. This gives an attacker remote control over compromised systems and at the same time encrypts any malware that may be downloaded to prevent it from being detected by network-based intrusion detection systems and monitoring tools. Using SSH has the advantage of requiring a username and password to be entered, thereby ensuring only the adversary can use the backdoor to access the rootkit. Trojan Downloader 3 or TDL3 is the third generation of rootkit developed by the Dogma Millions cybercrime group and is an example of a real-world rootkit. The rootkit adds itself as a printer driver, which gives it kernel mode driver privileges. It installs an encrypted file system for its own use that begins at the end of the hard disk and grows backwards to the beginning of the disk. Windows just thinks this is free space with nothing in it, which means it's not detected by traditional scanning techniques. TDL3 operates on a per install cost model by recording when it gets installed on a target and who purchased this source version. The TDL3 rootkit is used to download, install and hide malicious payload modules that can then do keystroke monitoring, carry out distributed denial of service attacks, and many more actions. As the security of the operating application's surface improved, direct penetration of a target.
Okay, so we just understood what the TDL3 does, the command and control, of course, for the SSH, things like that. Now you can see how an attacker will definitely try to gain access to systems and command and control those systems. I'm not going to really, I'm not going to really, dwell on some points because I want to believe the instructor is making these things as understandable as possible. So I'm just trying to add, my own knowledge into what is being said, in the course of the stream. But I want to believe that we are also able to, get this at a foundational level. What is being discussed, about these types of, tools, and of course, what you are expected to understand as a cybersecurity professional, right? So, and like I said, don't worry, keep your questions, note your questions down, write your questions down, take notes, anything you don't understand. There's going to be a session where we'll do that. You can even start getting your questions in the comment section, on this on the stream, and of course, like I said, the email that's going to be sent. You can also get your questions. I want to see us ask very, you know, um, very high intellectual questions.
Became more difficult. Consequently, cybercriminals looked for other ways to get malware into their target. On a workstation, the weakest link, of course, is the person using the computer, and so we become the target. The first approach taken by attackers to exploit the user is what's called phishing. This involves sending an email with a malicious attachment, or a link to a malicious site, to a lot of users, hoping that at least one will take the bait and open the attachment or click on the link. At this point, the malware downloads into the target system and begins executing. A phishing email will do as much as possible to entice its recipient to open its malicious attachment or to click on the link. In the early days, this might have been a rather crude appeal to greed by suggesting the recipient had won a lottery they hadn't entered. But nowadays, the better phishing attacks are much more sophisticated. The email may pretend to have an up-to-date analysis of a current news topic. It may look like an official bank email asking you, ironically, to check your security or account settings. It may look like a postal email advising you a parcel is ready for pickup. Attachments are always suspicious, and
Now, I just want us to understand. Now, you can see how an attacker would think, right? Of course, we all know, we understand what phishing does. Now, you can see phishing is just like a bait, where an attacker tries to bait you into something. You can see what these types of bait would look like. Of course, when you want to go fishing, you have a bait, you have a hook, and you put something enticing to draw the fish. That's just what is usually in the mail to lure people to click into this mail. So imagine an attacker performing this, and in one of the mail, the instructor made mention of is maybe you should make a configuration to your bank settings or your bank account. Imagine that happening, and maybe a picture was there that also contained the keylogger, or that we saw malicious file, being embedded, that malware being embedded, because of course a malware is a malicious software, so we can call the keylogger a malware being embedded into that same mail, and then you click on it, or the link, you click on it without knowing that it's began to run the process, and immediately you launched your banking profile and then you started typing. That is already at the back end of the attacker, is already receiving, at the command and control center of the attacker is already receiving what you're typing. Oh, so this is your email ID, this is your email password, things like that. So you can see how phishing, you can see how these things are interconnected, how they link with each other. Let's keep listening, let's keep watching.
hovering over a supposed government hyperlink to find it links to gf65mmjy.com is a sure giveaway. Sometimes phishing attacks aren't carried out by sending email to a large recipient list, but are designed to trap a specific person. These are referred to as spear phishing emails. In this case, the attacker will have spent a fair bit of time researching the target and will craft an email which may purport to come from a colleague inside the business and use common business terminology. These are not necessarily harder to detect as phishing emails, but they are designed to have the recipient let down their guard. Consider your own email over the last week or month. Have you received a phishing email? What did you do? Did you open it or just delete it? Was it fairly crude or did it look quite convincing? Many phishing emails these days can be quite sophisticated and difficult to detect as traps. Some special forms of phishing campaigns have been seen. Some phishing campaigns target mobile users, while others target users of voice over IP services, an attack also known as vishing. Phishing attacks, like any cyber attack, can be costly. Between 2013 and 2015, cyber attackers scammed over $100 million out of Facebook and Google by asking for it through phishing emails. Waterholes are another type of attack focused on the user. In this attack, a website which focuses on a specific set of users, doctors for instance, is compromised. The site is typically one commonly used by the group, and when they subsequently visit it, then malware is downloaded. The attacker hopes that the user will do this on their business computer, hence enabling access to their organization. In 2020, Kaspersky discovered a waterhole attack targeting religious charities. The campaign was named Holy Water and worked by tricking visitors into downloading an Adobe update which contained the malware. The attackers have yet to be.
Guys, sorry man, but when I had holy water, what came to my head was Holy Father, Holy Father. Anyways, back to now, you can see what is actually being, portrayed right here. Now, an attacker taking advantages of campaigns. So you can expect this phishing from different angles. Of course, for instance, the holy water, you can go I always really recommend you visiting the links and reading more about these campaigns. That will just give you an understanding. You see, cybersecurity is everyone's job, but if you've taken it upon yourself to become a professional in cybersecurity, you must be ready to study. Let's dive back.
Identified. A good example of how an event can trigger phishing attacks is the 2022 FIFA World Cup, where phishing attacks targeting the Middle East doubled in the lead up to the event. Many of the emails looked like they were from the FIFA help desk, as we can see here. The goal of these phishing attacks included financial fraud, gaining credentials, stealing information, and surveillance. Many of the emails focused on betting on the World Cup, enabling the attackers to gain credentials which they could reuse.
So just by clicking on a single email or any link on an email, you can see these different emails. They have attachments, you know, with them attached. And of course, some of these links here, you don't know what is behind that is being embedded. And they could be keystrokes. I mean, keystrokes, keyloggers. Keyloggers are actually malware that right now we see people being, being um, accustomed with trying to get their target to click on attachments, click on links that will give them a command and control center back at their end where they can monitor your keystrokes. So and you can see just from links, phishing emails, spear phishing, which are usually more targeted, you can see how these types of attacks could actually happen, right? Let's go next to, and of course, here we studied the phishing and watching hosts. Like I said, let's go. We still have topics to cover.
Over recent years, there's been an increasing recognition of the threat posed by nation states using highly sophisticated malware, known as Advanced Persistent Threats, or APTs. This is malware directed at political and military targets using multiple vectors to attack. APTs have a high degree of stealthiness and can persist over a long period of time. There are 5 key characteristics which make APTs quite different to rootkits. The first is that they tend to be highly customized to a specific target or set of targets, rather than being a common code module. An associated characteristic is that they're focused on targeting the specific system or set of systems for which they've been designed, rather than being opportunistic. They usually have multiple advanced and often zero-day exploits through which to exploit the target. Their deployment is likely to be controlled or have some level of intervention by humans rather than being fully automated. And once in place, operate in a low and slow manner in order to remain stealthy and unnoticed. An APT may have one or more objectives depending upon the source of the attack, and these may change over time. An APT may be sent by an adversary to carry out espionage against nation-state targets, with the intention of stealing sensitive information. It may be sent to cause sabotage by disrupting the operation of the critical infrastructure systems such as telecommunications, power, and water. An APT must infiltrate its target, find a place to hide, and then continue to operate if it's to succeed as a persistent threat. This requires it to have 5 key functions. The first is command and control, the ability for the remote attacker to direct tasking and configuration of the implanted malware, to download new payloads, and to provide malware updates. This requires the APT to connect back to its command and control server to look for tasking or to open an access path for the adversary to gain direct control. The more sophisticated APTs don't operate as discrete applications, but attach themselves to an existing application or process that's running in memory. This is known as malware injection. An APT wants to remain invisible for as long as possible and operate as a low and slow attack, stealthily extracting what it needs with as little impact on the host computer and without generating regular or predictable network traffic. Consequently, A substantial amount of effort is invested in the cloaking subsystem to ensure that malicious actions can't be observed by legitimate operators of the systems. APT software is typically designed to collect information, and it needs to send it back to its control server. This is known as exfiltration. And a good exfiltration system will not only encrypt the information being sent so that it isn't seen by any monitoring systems, but it may also hide it in the kind of packets that are normally ignored, such as HTTP or DNS requests. The final function is known as reignition. In order to remain operational for a period of time, an APT needs to restart when the system is rebooted, or if the system administrator attempts to remove it. The basic approach to reignition on a Windows system is to write a new entry into the registry to instruct Windows to run the malware loader. This may not be the only reignition mechanism, however, as often an APT will use multiple means of reigniting. So what does an APT really look like when it's militarized and deployed by a state? While a malware module called Agent BTZ was the earliest recorded APT, infecting the Pentagon in 2008, the most notorious military-grade APT to date has been Stuxnet, detected in 2010. Stuxnet was designed specifically to target centrifuges in the Iranian nuclear program, targeting the Siemens industrial plant equipment used in nuclear fuel enrichment, the kind of equipment used in the uranium enrichment facility at Natanz, Iran. The US admitted in 2012 that it was responsible, together with Israel, for developing Stuxnet. A key feature of Stuxnet is that it was designed to be delivered via email or on a USB stick, or through prior implantation on electronic equipment being used in the facility. With this design, Stuxnet can get to its target systems even if they're not connected to the internet. Stuxnet, when it was first released, used 4 previously unknown vulnerabilities on Windows computers to propagate and deliver the payload to the SCADA system. Once on the system, Stuxnet took advantage of a vulnerability in the Siemens WinCC PCS7 SCADA control software, which allowed it to take control of the software and then repeatedly speed up and slow down the centrifuges, causing the aluminium tubes to expand and contract, eventually destroying between 900 and 1,000 centrifuges. A good source of information on APTs is Kaspersky Labs. Here we see the Kaspersky APT site. If we scroll down the screen, we can see the various APTs. Let's have a look at Stuxnet. By clicking on it and going to the threat, we can see the other APTs which it relates to. Shortly after Stuxnet was made public, a similar APT called Dooku was identified, followed by Flame, and a year or so later, Equation. Defending against APTs is difficult, and it's likely that an APT attack will succeed. APTs are usually found when network monitoring detects the installed malware attempting to connect to its command and control systems. Focusing controls which address each stage of the cyber kill chain provides the opportunity for early detection, and using tools such as Microsoft's Arbitrary Code Guard can help stop them. Nevertheless, APTs will often penetrate their targets, and the average time it takes to detect them, once in, is measured in months. Advanced persistent threats are very sophisticated forms of malware. They're difficult to detect, and there's every indication that they're here to stay. Let's have a look at
So we just understood what an APT is, and of course, I'm actually finding this very interesting. That sometimes when I have to pause, I'm like, do I really have to pause? And I know some of you might be asking that same question. You just let us get on with this. So we just understood what an APT is, and of course, you can see from the name an advanced persistent threat. That is a threat that is persistent, like the instructor said. They are there to stay. There's some concept that were explained that I'm just going to reiterate on, like the command and control. the process injection, the cloaking, the exfiltration, and then the reignition. Now you can see this process are all, you know, they are all interconnected in a way that they make this malware persistent on that system. Like I said, when we start having to deal with, development of I mean, you know, when you want to build an advanced persistent threat, it has to be done, in a very organized way, because of course, even processes or steps in the cyber kill chain would also help you. You perform reconnaissance, you know the type of system, things you want to do. You look at how you can develop your weapons, your weaponization, how it's going to be delivered, what is actually going to exploit, the command and control. Things like this would help you in developing an advanced persistent threat. But we see them, and you can see one of which that was explained to us was the Stuxnet. So there's actually um an analysis that was done, by a YouTuber on the Stuxnet, malware, and of course, it was very interesting. I watched it and was able to understand, how they were able to, of course, get that into, the system that was exploited. And of course, you can see some of those malware were also, deployed into some unknown vulnerabilities that were found on some Windows systems. So those types of vulnerabilities are called zero-day vulnerabilities that hasn't been publicly known, and then that was what was, deployed to exploit those vulnerabilities. So I mean, we are going to we are making progress. I can feel the progress. And what I want to also encourage is we developing more, more hunger for more quest for more knowledge, because of course I want to, get to a stage where we also have, a session like this for malware analysis, which is usually very interesting, so we can interact, we can, analyze, and make discussions together. Trust me, as much as you want to get back to this, I also want to. So let's get back to it.
It's a particular form of malware known as ransomware. For targets with current backups, being hit with ransomware is just a nuisance. But for those without it, it can be a very expensive lesson in practical cybersecurity. Instead of stealing information, ransomware encrypts files or storage systems on its target to lock out their legitimate owner, and then demands payment for the decryption key. Asymmetric encryption is typically used for this. I won't delve into the mysteries of asymmetric encryption in this course, but if you'd like to learn more about it, then you can go to the LinkedIn Learning page and search for asymmetric encryption. There's plenty of courses to choose from to learn more. Let's look at a contemporary example of ransomware. CryptoLocker emerged in 2013.
I know at this point someone is there asking, "Yo, bro, can we just pause this and then go to asymmetric encryption and then learn more about asymmetric encryption?" Don't worry. I mean, we have asymmetric encryption. Those types of encryption, we're going to, I believe, in further courses, we'll look at them in depthly.
And was the most prevalent variant of ransomware until mid-2014, when new variants such as Torrent Locker and CryptoWall took over. CryptoLocker was extraordinarily successful, with an estimated 234,000 victims. It used phishing campaigns to opportunistically target its victims. These campaigns included the FedEx and UPS "You Have a Parcel" emails, which includes a hyperlink to a malicious website where the malware exists. Similar ransomware campaigns using bank emails, FBI notices, and speeding fines have also been identified. A newer version, particularly prevalent in the Netherlands, used a malicious attachment, a Word document with an embedded macro, which downloaded the malware directly onto the target computer when the document was opened. The person behind the CryptoLocker campaign is a Russian called Evgeny Mikhailovich Bogachev. Bogachev used the Game Over Zeus botnet, a network of command and control servers, to distribute CryptoLocker. The network was taken down by the FBI in June 2014, but Bogachev is still at large with a $3 million bounty on his head. CryptoLocker executes through a 5-stage process. Firstly, the victim computer is infected and the malware is installed. Then the malware attempts to connect to its command and control server. It contains an algorithm which randomly creates domain names, such as the one shown, and tries each of these until it finds one which is active. It then generates an encryption key and uses the advanced encryption algorithm AES to encrypt files on the target computer. At that point, the malware issues a demand for money in order to recover the decryption key. CryptoLocker is particularly difficult to recover from, as it uses RSA, a strong asymmetric encryption system, to encrypt and send the AES decryption key back to the command and control server, ensuring it can't be seen. After being encrypted, the decryption key can't be recovered directly from the victim's computer. More details on CryptoLocker are available from the US CERT site, shown here. When CryptoLocker hits an enterprise, it can have a pretty serious consequence, as it not only encrypts files on the employee's computer, but also encrypts files in any shares that the computer has access to. For a business which manages its information in a Windows file system, this can be devastating, with often tens of thousands of business files rendered inaccessible. The criminals running ransomware campaigns usually require payment through financial systems such as Bitcoin or PaySafe cards in order to make themselves difficult to trace. When ransomware emerged, payment demands were in the order of a few $100s. It was often easier for the victim to pay the money than cope with the loss of their files, and potentially their ability to run their businesses, while they engage in a lengthy and likely futile law enforcement pursuit. However, ransomware targeting and demands have changed. The RYUK ransomware targets local government and small to medium businesses, and its ransom demands vary, with one victim being asked for 65 bitcoins, about $600,000 at the time. And they still get paid. In 2019, 2 municipalities in the state of Florida together paid over $1.1 million ransom to recover their data. In the 18 months from June 2021 to November 2022, the Hive ransomware group has netted over $100 million with its ransomware campaign, which focuses on the healthcare sector. And it's also extended this campaign to other areas of the critical infrastructure. The attacks use a variety of tactics, including exploiting Microsoft Exchange servers, and typically gains access through phishing emails. In October
Okay, so now we just learned about ransomware, and then the CryptoLocker was one that was explained, and then we saw how it was deployed, how it was, how it's encrypted using the encryption algorithm, which was the RSA, and of course, you saw that, with that type of encryption algorithm, it cannot be decrypted on that victim's system, and you can see the process at which, of course, the attacker was able to exploit that system, and of course that can be done. You can see as the instructor has helped us understand that could happen at any form, at even a small scale size business. So it's not just prone, or the ransomware is not just susceptible to just top organizations, big organizations, even small business for prison. You can see the amount that is being required of them, about 65 bitcoins. That's really a lot. But yeah, let's get back.
2018, Bloomberg created a sensation by announcing that the Chinese had implanted tiny chips in the servers of an American company, Supermicro. The article reported that the servers were supplied to the Department of Defense and other sensitive government agencies, as well as Amazon and Apple. In a letter sent to its customers, Supermicro reported that their investigations found no evidence of Bloomberg's claim. Apple and Amazon also very quickly denied the findings and called on Bloomberg to retract the story. Eventually, one of Bloomberg's named sources said that his comments were taken out of context, and he actually told Bloomberg that what it had reported didn't make sense. While he had discussed the theoretical feasibility with Bloomberg, He'd never suggested that they'd been used in the Supermicro board. His overall take on the piece is that the technical details were taken from an earlier Black Hat presentation he'd made and were jumbled. Another hardware FUD was unleashed when the reports started to emerge about two new computer chip exploits called Meltdown and Spectre. The initial reports indicated the vulnerabilities in these chips would leak passwords and sensitive data, and could be used to steal data from other cloud users. Another report from a computer consultancy company suggested that the current standards of security in the tech industry means that it was crucial that businesses contacted their highly qualified cybersecurity team to protect against Meltdown, Spectre, and future security threats. Adding to the drama, CNN reported that a US government-backed body warned that the chips themselves needed to be replaced to completely fix the problems. One cybersecurity expert announced Meltdown and Spectre were disasters, and another stated that Meltdown can be exploited by any script kiddie. It was suggested that the exploits are nearly impossible to fix, short of shipping out new processors. As it turned out, firmware patches were shipped quickly, and there have been no reports of any successful exploit using the two techniques. Meltdown and Spectre were high on drama and low on real risk, and FUD once more trumped common sense. Not all reports relating to hardware insecurity are FUD. The researchers shown here identified flaws in the Trusted Protection Module chips from Intel and STMicro, which enabled the extraction of signature keys, breaking the chain of trust for which they form the root. The researchers have been involved in identifying previous hardware vulnerabilities and are respected in their field. The vulnerability, in this case, can be readily exploited. For an end user, this particular vulnerability can be exploited via the target's browser by having it visit a malicious website, and it was effective on all versions of Internet Explorer running at the time of the announcement. This announcement was one that was worth taking seriously. Nevertheless, when it comes to sensational exposés regarding cybersecurity, check the evidence before you believe it.
Okay, so great. That was really very interesting session. So we've come to the end of the first topic, which is on the cyber threats. I mean, we have the frameworks for protection against cyber threats. We also have making cybersecurity effective. We have detecting and managing cyber incidents, and then finally cyber diplomacy. And then we're done with the cybersecurity foundations. Um, we're done with the cybersecurity foundations learning path, the course. So now this is our first question. I believe you can all see the question. So I would want us to answer this question right about now, and then I'm going to answer it. But like I said, I'm going to provide the email at which we are going to be answering these questions to. And yep. So okay. So this is the first question. This is the first question. You can see a project management website has been compromised with malware to its users. This attack is known as what? So I need that question answered. So next question. Next question is, what is most important to remember about CryptoLocker and other ransomware? So what is the most important to remember about CryptoLocker and other ransomware? So our next question: what happens in the beginning of a cyber kill chain? So what happens in the beginning of a cyber kill chain? And then our next question is what type of threats occurs when a hacker compromises an IT system by exploiting its vulnerabilities? Um, our next question is what was known as a string of operations that compromised many US government agencies? Our next question is which of the following will extract files from a target or use target as a sole source of email spam? Our next question is what type of cloaking method is used so a subdirectory cannot be seen? What type of cloaking method is used so a subdirectory cannot be seen? And then finally, the last question, which technique would an attacker use to create a simple keystroke logger? Okay, so we have one more question. That wasn't our last question. So, which description is not a characteristic of a rootkit? Oh, is not. Which description is not a characteristic? Okay, okay. Very important to to read questions so you can see how I did. You can see how I did. So I'm not going to review all my answers now. I got 6 out of 9. So and at least the last one I had to read the question very well. So yeah, So we've come to the end of this stream. Right? I know we have how many more topics? We have four more topics to go. I mean, they're very short and interesting ones. But like I said, I want you to give me your answers. I mean, that's how I'm going to be sure we all watched up until this very time. So give me your answers, and then yeah, I know some of you will ask me now, to what mail? So the mail you're going to send your answers to is IO99. You take this down, IO99 at careful watchers, IO99 at careful watchers dot net. IO at careful watchers dot net. Okay, am I getting messages already? Are you guys that fast? Is your speed that is it that fast? So am I getting answers already? Okay. Area 99 at carefulwatchers.net. So careful, CAREFULWATCHERS .net. IO 99 AYO. Now 99 is 9 number, then INE at carefulwatchers.net. So make sure you get that correctly. If you want, I'll drop it in the comment section. AYO number 9, another number 9, then INE at careful, CAREFUL watchers, WATCHERS .net. IO 99 at carefulwatchers.net. So that will do for today. And then once I get your response, I get your answers, I'll be sure you guys are finding this very interesting. And then we boom, we move to the next topics. I mean, we could actually, from our next session, our next stream, just going to run through the O and then complete this. So I think in another 2 hours we can run through everything and then get done with it. Yeah, but we're not going to. I know you guys are finding it interesting, but we're not going to do it in this session. We're going to do it in the next session. Send your answers for this quiz, for this chapter's quiz. I want to get your answers. Send it. Send it. Send it. Am I getting emails already? Send it. Send it. Send it. Guys, send it. Send it. Oh. Send it. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I really hope you had a nice time. It was really nice, having this session with you guys, and I hope to see you again in or by our next session. So it's bye from me.